Hi everybody, Nick here. Today I'd like to talk with you about the Ontario Knife Company Rat 2 knife. So I've already shown you a comparison of the Rat 2 with a gas station special knife and the Spyderco Leash Bowie to talk about, well, basically value in the pocket knife world and the fact that you often get what you pay for. In the gas station knife's case, junk. But this knife is actually good enough that it deserves a full review on its own. And so I'm gonna do that here today. The biggest thing to keep in mind, though, is that this is a $30 knife. That is its biggest perk by far, and everything I say needs to be kept in mind. I'm going to be comparing this primarily to a $60 knife, a $200 knife, and a $500 knife, and that's not really fair. But in order to tell you why this is a $30 knife, I need to make those comparisons. And so just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to beat up on this little guy. I'm just trying to tell you what's going on and where you're losing that money, or where you're saving that money, I suppose. So we'll start off talking about the good. The first and biggest feature of this knife is the price. No one would be talking about this if this weren't a $30 knife. That's something to keep in mind. Other than that, the knife is actually fairly sharp. So even having done a couple of takes of this, it still cuts paper pretty straightforwardly. It's not God's gift to edges, but it certainly works. And, out of the box, you're not going to be disappointed with the sharpness on this knife. And that's kind of nice. I've had knives come from the factory duller than this one is, from much higher quality, quote-unquote, brands. So that's something you got to keep in mind. At least this one turned out really well. The build quality on this knife is surprisingly good as well. It's solid. I don't know if this is G10 or plastic, but whatever it is, it's pretty reasonable. And the knife itself doesn't feel janky, particularly. It doesn't feel like it's about to fall apart. There's no blade play back and forth, or at least if there is, it's small enough I don't care. There's no lock rock, and the lockup is solid. It's about between 50 and 65%. So that's not a problem. And even the blade is centered, which practically speaking isn't that meaningful, but a lot of knife nerds like me like it. This is pretty much dead center, and that's a lot more that can be said from this knife than relative to some of the bigger brands like Benchmade. Oh, sorry, terrible cough. So it's actually, even at this price point, centered and the quality is good. With that comes another important feature of a cheap knife. It's safe. The gas station special I took apart is not a safe knife. It had parts that were just waiting to fail, and when they failed, it could come slam and shut on your fingers or something like that, and fingers are really expensive. So when you buy a cheap knife, you want it to still be safe. The lockup on this knife is solid. It's about 50%. It's a liner lock that's reasonably thick. You can spine whack it, no problem, and frankly, I don't see any danger with this knife at all, which is really important. I would hand this knife to somebody I like and or love to use, and that's key, because you don't want to buy a knife that's so cheap you're scared of it. So that's something to keep in mind. And then finally, the clip is nice because it gives you 4 options. You can carry it tip up, as it is here, tip down. You can carry it on your left side or on your right side. So that's a nice thing too, especially if this is your starter knife. It lets you figure out whether you like tip up or tip down carry, whether you really even give a damn. So that's also pretty awesome. Now we move on to the bad stuff, and again, all of this needs to be in the context of it being a $30 knife. The biggest demerit on this knife is the steel. It's AUS 8 steel, which is not a terrible steel by any stretch of the imagination. It's better than things like your 440, just unlabeled 440. 440C is a little bit better than this, and it's certainly better than surgical stainless or just Pakistani steel. Not to diss on Pakistan, but there's a lot of crappy steel coming out that country. Nonetheless, this is not a great steel. It takes a good edge, but it won't hold it for very long. And so as you're cutting with it, this knife is going to become dull more quickly than a knife that's made out of a nicer steel, like VG10, 440C, 154CM, or certainly any of the more modern super steels like your S30V, your CTS XHP, any of those guys. So that's something to keep in mind. You're not getting a very good steel here. Do not let this make you think that all cutlery goes this dull this quickly. So that's something to keep in mind. And that's the biggest issue. It's clear that in order to cut costs, they used a steel that's not great. And, that's a bit of a problem. Ergonomically speaking, the knife is okay. I have fairly small hands, and even for me, there's not a whole lot to grip onto here. My middle finger and my index finger are kind of floating. I can do okay with it. And the thumb ramp here is okay. This jimping's a bit sharp because it's not a really well-finished knife. I'll get there. And the pocket clip digs in a little bit. It's not a knife I would want to use for a long period of cutting, but it certainly works. And it's not an ergonomic train wreck like some other knives I've tried. Speaking of ergonomics, I don't care for how the liner lock functions on this particular knife. It's one of the ones where you really have to jam your finger or your thumb in there to get purchase on the liner lock bar. I wish the cutout here was a little bit deeper so you could get more easily at that liner lock, and potentially even to make this side a little bit more scallop. But again, $30 knife. You can't expect that much. And then finally, the thumb stud position is not ideal for me because it's right on the axis of the pivot. Not exactly, but so in order to deploy, you need to first go this way and then go that way. So you need to do kind of a whip around kind of thing, which you can flick it out, especially now that I've worked the pivot in a little bit, but it's not as nice as when the thumb stud is a little bit further off the axis and you can do a straight forward flick. And again, this is a $500 knife. This is a $30 knife. This needs to be kept in mind. Nonetheless, I think they could have done the thumb stud positioning a little better. Would have liked to see it a little further out, even if there's a little bulge there. And then overall, the knife is just poorly finished, meaning that, for instance, the play or the hinge is a little bit gritty. You can hear that. It's not perfect in that way. Also, the chamfering around the edges on the non-cutting surfaces is not great. It's a little bit sharp here. I wouldn't, for instance, want to cut with my thumb up here, just because it presses into the thumb in a pretty unpleasant way. That's not great, and that's not present on knives like your Spyderco Delica or your Dragonfly as much. So that's another area where they cut corners. And then also you can see, for instance, this printing. I'm going to try and make it visible here on the video. It's really crappily done. You can read the Randall's Adventure Training, but the rest of it you can't really. And this is another area where it's just clear that they cut a big corner there. And that's, what do you get for $30? So, overall, you end up with a knife that's got an incredible price. It's a sharpish blade when you get it. The build quality is good. It's a safe, cheap knife, which is key. And the clip is good. But for that $30, you pay the price of a not very good steel, ergonomics that are a little questionable, and the fact that the knife is just not that well finished. Surfaces that shouldn't be sharp are, and vice versa, although it comes sharp enough. So that's something you really need to keep in mind here. My overall feelings on the knife, though, are pretty good. For a $30 knife, this is a really great little unit. And this is a knife I would very happily, if I needed, for instance, just a functional knife for something, like, somebody said, oh, I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm going to be in a situation where I need to carry a pocket knife, but I want to spend very little money. This is where I'm going to send them. No, absolutely no doubt. This is, I would say, the bare minimum amount of knife to be good and usable and functionally have no major issues. This is also a really great starter knife. If you're looking at this video and you're thinking, Nick, I'm thinking of buying a pocket knife and carrying a pocket knife. I don't want to go through something too expensive here, but I want to see if it's, everything it's cut out to be. Which is weird because it's not cut out to be much. But nonetheless, this is a great place to start because you get a decent enough steel, not great. You get sharp edges, you get good build, not great. And you get a lot of options on carry. And this will let you know very easily whether or not you're a person who can carry knives. If you, for instance, if you're a person who loses things out of your pocket, you don't want to start off with a $200 knife. That's a problem. Or, frankly, if it's just not something you end up doing, it's better to spend $30, get something that's okay, and learn that lesson that way. But this is a great starter knife. It's not a great ending knife. If you decide you really, you do enjoy carrying a pocket knife, it's useful for you, which is the key thing. I would really recommend that once you decide that, you gift this to a friend who's thinking, of getting started, and then you move up to something else. For instance, your Spyderco Dragonfly is a knife that is smaller, but it is pretty much without the compromises. And this is in ZDP, which is a super steel, but you can get one in VG10 for about $40. And this is the Spyderco Delica, which is one of my favorite knives just ever, and is only $60, and is damn near perfect in every way for what it is. You might not like backlocks, you might not like the handle, but for what it is, it's done really, really well. So, again, this is a great starter, but it's not a great ender. And you should kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at this. This is a great place to go from, but it's not a great place to end up. Nonetheless, like I said, I'm actually pretty damned impressed with this little knife for 30 bucks. I did not expect to get this kind of quality, well, certainly this kind of value out of a knife at this price range, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this to somebody. If I'm buying a gift, I might go a little bit higher, just because I want them to have something that's really good. But this knife is just fine if that's what you're starting off with. I hope this has been helpful for you, and again, if you're interested in this knife particularly, I put up another video that talked about this versus a gas station special, and in that video I disassembled this knife. So that might be something you're interested in watching. But again, why not? It's 30 bucks. And if you're just thinking of getting started, this is a great way to get started. I hope this is helpful, and have yourself a wonderful rest of the day. Bye now.